Lawrence Okolie wins his British and Commonwealth Cruiserweight title showdown with Wadi Camacho by 4th round TKO. I thought that Lawrence Okolie did show some improvements in this fight from a tactical point of view and also controlling his nerves a little bit better. To be fair, this event wasn't as big an event as when Lawrence Okolie fought Matty Askin on the undercard of Anthony Joshua versus, Povetkin? And also when Lawrence Okolie fought Isaac Chamberlain as a headliner at the O2. I think, and Lawrence talked about this in a post-fight interview, and I've also mentioned this before following some of Lawrence's fights, I think that nerves got to Lawrence Okolie big time against Isaac Chamberlain and Matty Askin because he was on a very big stage for both of those fights. And even though Lawrence Okolie was an Olympian, he was relatively inexperienced as an amateur. And even as a pro, yes, he's gone through all his domestic rivals now, but he's done so when he's only, 12-0 now. So I think the inexperience combined with the big stage results in nerves for Lawrence Okolie, which get him to fight a more ugly fight than he would do if he was more relaxed. I mean, if you remember when he fought Luke Watkins, where was that? I think that was York Hall. Let me just double check here. Yeah, at York Hall. A much smaller venue, far less pressure, and you didn't see the excessive holding in the Luke Watkins fight. But in the big occasions, I think he panics a little bit and he starts to hold. I've seen that many, many times in boxing. You know, I obviously competed myself as an amateur. I've seen many young guys come up through the amateur ranks, seen countless amateur fights as well as professional fights. And, you know, I've seen guys in the gym perform great. When they get in the ring, they start doing all kinds of strange stuff because they don't know how to handle the nerves. I've seen that many, many times, and I am certain that that's what's been going on with Lawrence Okolie. Some people are going to say, it's got nothing to do with nerves. He just don't know how to fight on the inside. Look, Lawrence Okolie is never going to be an amazing inside fighter. He's a tall, gangly, 6'5" cruiserweight, very long arms, but he doesn't always have to clinch excessively. I think the excessive amount of clinching is due to nerves. He's always going to clinch to some extent, but the excessiveness is the nerves. Now, in this fight against Wadi Camacho, you go watch the fight back, you'll see Lawrence Okolie wasn't the one initiating most of the clinching. Now, again, he did admit after the fight to nerves, even here against Wadi Camacho, and he explained what things leading up to the fight had led to him becoming nervous. But he wasn't initiating most of the clinching. He was falling in. Okay, so his attacks were clumsy. He was falling in, and it was Camacho initiating most of the clinches, if you watch carefully. I thought that Lawrence Okolie made a concerted effort in this fight to throw more punches up close. And both hands as well, right hand and left, uppercuts, left hooks and stuff like that. So I did see an improvement there. And ultimately, he was just far too strong and young for Wadi Camacho, who's been around the block and back and seen better days. I felt like Camacho was just trying to wait for one opportunity to land a big punch. He really wasn't trying to outbox Lawrence Okolie. He was just looking for one opportunity to land a big shot and knock Lawrence Okolie out. And in the third round, he actually did find an opportunity to land a big punch, and he wobbled Lawrence Okolie quite noticeably for, a couple seconds. But Okolie regained his composure and, resumed dominating the action. And then finally in the fourth round, he broke through with a series of punches, dropped Wadi Camacho. Camacho got up, but Okolie went in there, finished the job, and it was all said and done in the fourth round. So I personally think there was improvement there. I know Lawrence Okolie gets a lot of hate for various different reasons because of the extremely ugly performances against Matty Askin and Isaac Chamberlain. But I want to be a little patient with him, again, because of the fact that he's so inexperienced as an amateur and pro. and because of the fact that he's moving fast, you have to give the guy credit for having such little experience, but for being willing to move this fast. Because they're already talking about putting him in there against Lebedev for a world title. And he's only 12-0. With, again, what do you have? 20-something amateur fights? He's already cleaned up at domestic level. You know? I mean, this guy didn't have many more amateur fights than Anthony Yard has had. But look who Lawrence Okolie's fighting compared to who Anthony Yard's fighting. Yeah, Lawrence Okolie's cleaned out the cruiserweight division domestically. Anthony Yard hasn't even fought one domestic opponent yet. So, you know, put it in context, and you have to give credit where credit's due. I completely agree with people when it comes to criticizing Lawrence Okolie's performances against Isaac Chamberlain and Matty Yaskin, because, you know, even I was saying during the Matty Yaskin fight, he's very lucky not to have been disqualified there, because that's how excessive the holding was. But moving forward, I'm not going to hold those performances against him forever. You know, fighters progress. And hey, who's to say that any one of us could have done any better in those circumstances? I mean, most of you guys wouldn't beat Wadi Camacho, all right? I include myself in it. But I'm talking about in terms of handling your nerves and producing the appropriate form. Because it's difficult when you're up there under the bright lights and people have been talking and your opponent's been talking and there's so much on the line and you're inexperienced. It's difficult to hold down the nerves. It's difficult to control them. So again, I want to be a bit patient with Lawrence Okolie, see his progress. He's with a new trainer now in Barry Robinson. Barry Robinson, interestingly, is a guy who used to do YouTube videos. That's how I know about Barry Robinson. I didn't even know about Barry Robinson as a trainer. I'm not sure if he has an extensive background as a trainer, but I knew about him from making YouTube videos where he used to put the video up on the screen and do his little analysis. And from seeing Barry Robinson interact with Lawrence Okolie, to me, it looks as though Robinson is focusing on trying to build confidence. Because of the way he talks to Lawrence Okolie, he stares him in the eye and, you know, he has a particular approach. He's very hands-on, he seems, as a coach. And a big part of it seems to be trying to instill this confidence in Lawrence Okolie, trying to get him to come out of his shell a bit more. And I do wonder, you know, when it comes to the Dylan White situation, whether Barry Robinson had a hand in Lawrence Okolie reacting that way. You know, maybe he had no hand in it, but I do wonder because of the fact that you look at the ring entrance for this fight. He had his girlfriend, who is a rapper, come out and walk him to the ring, rapping, and Lawrence just had a certain, you know, swag about him, if you want to call it that, which I haven't seen before. And I suspect that it might be Barry Robinson trying to bring this out of Lawrence, you know, to try and make him become a more bold character himself. Maybe Barry Robinson, particularly for Americans, that's a very big thing for them. You know, Americans tend to be more bold and outgoing and gregarious, etc., than British people do, who tend to be a bit more reserved. Maybe Robertson sees that in Okolie and says, no, that's no good. We need you to be out of your shell a bit more. So yeah, maybe Robinson had some type of influence. Let me not say a hand, but some type of influence over Okolie in that Dylan White situation. And, you know, the ring walk and all this kind of stuff from Lawrence Okolie, this new swag that he's got now. Perhaps it will be fruitful, this union between, this pairing between Okolie and Barry Robinson. It remains to be seen, but I'm interested to see how it works out. So, yeah, that's my take on Lawrence Okolie versus Wadi Camacho. A predictable result, in all honesty. A lot of people were saying that this is kind of a step backwards for Lawrence Okolie, and I agree. It was a step back, but he's now cleaned out the British cruiserweight scene, other than maybe Richard Riakporhe. I know some people are asking for that fight. Yeah, that's a decent fight, but looking at Richard Riakporhe's own performances, I'm not sure whether he's ready for that right now, because Richard Riakporhe does seem to be more coordinated than Lawrence Okolie, and he's a big, tall guy too, but doesn't seem, you know, as ungainly as Lawrence Okolie does, but Richard Riakporhe has also struggled with his own nerves. You see, I know people look at these fighters and they get frustrated and all this kind of stuff. A lot of people don't understand what the fighters are feeling. When you have boxed yourself, when you have experienced boxing, when you've been through different situations yourself, when you're seeing young kids come up through the amateurs in the gym, etc., you understand what fighters feel. You've been there, you know? And even if we all have different personalities, some people feel slightly different things than others, you definitely get a feel for what, you know, different fighters are going to be feeling in different situations. So for a Richard Riakporhe, to me, it was clear, not his last fight, I think the fight before that, which went late and he stopped the guy late after being behind on the cards. It was nerves. He couldn't get his shots off. That's another common thing that you see with fighters who are suffering a lot of nerves, stage fright almost, is they can't get the shots off. It's like with an actor. It's where you get the term stage fright from. When an actor goes on stage, they get stage fright, they can't get their lines out. They forget their lines. Same with boxers. Some fighters who get really nervous, and you see different fighters react different ways to nerves. Some fighters just can't throw any damn punches. They call it freezing. When they can't, the punches just won't come out. They know in their head, I want to throw punches, but nothing's happening. And it's the nerves. They haven't yet become relaxed in that situation enough to be able to let the punches flow and perform in the ring the way they perform in the gym day in, day out. So, yeah, I'm not sure if Richard Riakporhe is actually ready for Okolie right now, to be honest with you. But, hey, I don't hate on him for pursuing the fight. Certainly his manager, Dylan White, would like it for him. So we'll see. But Lawrence Okolie, I believe, says that he's done at British level now and he's moving on. So perhaps he's moving on to European level. Eddie Hearn says he'd like to see Lawrence fight, again, Lebedev for a version of the world title. That's a gamble. And not just a gamble because Lebedev, even though he's very faded now, he's still a quality fighter. That's not the only reason it's a gamble. It's a gamble because once you're at world level, you can't go backwards. So maybe Okolie's people will be looking to move up to European level, you know, go the traditional route. He's already British and Commonwealth champion. Step up to European level, win the European title, maybe defend that a couple times, and then go for a world title because Usyk's about to move up and there's going to be many titles become vacant. But Eddie Hearn did make a good point. He said, in his opinion, the time to fight for the world title is now and it's against Lebedev. Everything is timing, as Tunde Ajayi likes to say. Because if he waits another year, 18 months and tries to go for a world title down the line, the world titles could all be held by young, fresh, in their prime fighters who are much more difficult to beat than a faded Denis Lebedev. So this is why in Eddie Hearn's mind, he thinks it's worth gambling now and taking the Lebedev fight because at least that box is ticked. You've become world champion. You've ticked that box. Nobody can ever take that away from you, no matter what happens in your career after that. So yeah, we'll see where it goes. But one thing I will say about Lawrence Okolie before I close out this video is we've seen time and time again that he is a tremendously physically strong cruiserweight. Whether you like his style or not, whether you like his personality or not, his physical strength is immense for a guy at 200 pounds. And that, in no small part, is down to the fact that he is in the gym sparring heavyweights all the time. And those heavyweights are trying to push him around and he's trying to push them around. That prepares him, in terms of physical strength, the body contact, for when he goes in against cruiserweights who are far smaller, he's got the strength advantage over them. Now, I'm sure he's naturally physically strong anyway, but as I say, that experience sparring heavyweights all the time and huge heavyweights at that definitely gives him the strength advantage over a lot of these cruiserweights. They just can't do anything with him in terms of his strength. When he wants to wrap these guys up and fight ugly and just maul them, he can, and there's nothing any of these guys can do because they're not strong enough. Now, even at world level, Okolie's physical strength might be a problem for a lot of these guys. Yeah, even at world level. I'm not saying against all of them, but against some of them, his physical strength could be an issue. So don't underestimate that, even though, as I say, people don't like Okolie's style and they say it's ugly and this, that, and the other. Understandable. But when you're in there with someone who is tremendously physically strong, they can actually nullify a lot of what you do. I mean, we saw that in the Isaac Chamberlain fight, right? Isaac Chamberlain, stylistically, is far more pleasing on the eye to watch, right? He's got very slick punching technique, Isaac Chamberlain. The way he throws his punches, the way he moves, it's all very pretty to watch. But when he was in there against Lawrence Okolie, all that pretty stuff, all that slick technique was totally overpowered by Lawrence Okolie's strength. It was nullified. So don't underestimate physical strength and how significant that is in boxing matches, right? Particularly when fighters know how to use it effectively. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Lawrence Okolie's win over Wadi Camacho. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.